Hello, everybody. Welcome to Voices from the Liminal. I'm Selena, Essence of the Moon, and today we're stepping into a conversation that feels very deeply rooted, not just in spirit, but in Earth itself. Joining us is Lissa Kennedy. She is a guide, a teacher, a creator whose work centers around the healing power of nature, forest therapy, and reconnecting with the sacred intelligence of the land, from guiding forest bathing experiences to creating immersive spaces for children and adults to return to the earth. Her path is one of remembrance, of slowing down, and of listening again to what has always been speaking to us. So tonight we'll explore what it means to reconnect with nature, and not just as a place, but as a relationship, a healing presence, and a living, breathing guide. So everybody, take a deep breath. And let's fully arrive into this moment and step with us into the liminal. Lissa, thank you so much for being here. I am excited to have you here, first of all. And then, second of all, your deck has been amazing in so many ways. It comes out on April 6th, I think that date is.
Yep.
So pretty soon, guys, you can all get the deck on pre-order. I do have the links in the description down below, as well as I also have a pinned comment if you want to order the deck through Amazon and then get it on April 6th or a day before, depending on how they ship them out. But thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you. Because thank you, because this deck has really helped me reconnect in a more deeper, meaningful way, especially I mean, I know you saw that I had no electricity and I was looking through your decks, and one of the cards popped up as I had a candle in front of me and there was shadow playing. And so I was able to use the deck even in the dark with no electricity in the middle of the night.
I love that. When you shared that story, I was like, oh, yes. The intuitive nature of just working with what you had really made my heart sing. So I was like, oh, this is what we wanted, this deck to just be out in the world, using, of course, in nature. But when you can adapt it to any situation, it's like next level.
And recently I pulled out a card, and as I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what, this would be a really good journaling prompt as well.
Yes.
So I think there's many ways to use this deck. So I love that there's 52 activity cards in here. So it makes me feel like you can just do something like one day a week. And if depending how your life is going, how busy it is, grab this deck, randomly, intuitively pull a card, or even go by it in order and go outside and see what nature is trying to tell you.
Exactly. Yeah, we did 52 cards for, one a week in general. Of course, you can do more or less, but that's what our goal was with the deck, is to have it very accessible. You could just pull a card. We want it to be as easy as, it can be to connect, because in our modern world, I know it can get really tricky to get out there and connect. And so we want to reduce the barriers to that. And this deck will hopefully kind of ease the transition into nature. And my business partner, Roxanne, and I created it together, and we're both forest therapy guides. So that was kind of our intention from the beginning.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So before we continue on with the additional questions, I do want to just stop and say hi to some people. We have quite a bit of people watching here. And I feel like it clicked out of some of the comments already, but I know we had Heather. She was in here earlier. We have Aaliyah. Hi, Aaliyah. Thank you for being here. We have Lila from Tapestry of the Unseen. Thank you, my dear sister, for being here. I have another beautiful sister here, Debbie from Debbie's Witchy Vlog. Thank you, Debbie, for being here. I appreciate you. There's a lot of chatting going on in here in the chat. We have Roman. Hi, Roman. How are you? So you're here because of Lila? I texted Lila earlier today. Okay, here we go. Heather, there's your name. We have Wildlife Yoga G's.
Oh, that's one of my friends. That's Jessica.
Okay, hi. Thank you for being here, Jessica. We have Hershey, the shadow reader. Hi, Hershey. We have Moonfox Knight. Thank you for being here. Fae of the Forest. Hello, Fae of the Forest. We have my dear sister Coco. She's here from Coco Magic. And there's continued chat going on in here. Thank you all for being here, guys. I'm excited for you guys to learn more about this deck. Again, it is on pre-order, and definitely go ahead and check it out, guys, because you guys are going to definitely love it. So, what first awakened your personal connection with like nature and seeing it as something more than just a place to visit?
I think, like, obviously as children, I was connected very deeply with nature as a child, and like many of us are and were. So that was my first inherent connection. But as you kind of grow up, sometimes you lose that connection, especially in
Mhm.
our modern world. And so I would say I reawakened my connection as like being out in nature is just not a place to go from point A to point B on a hike, or, to snowmobile through or whatever,
Yeah.
which all those things are wonderful. But I realized there was more to it with this forest bathing practice. It came into my world in an interesting way, and I just felt very called to it immediately. And then once I started my practice and I got trained as a guide, that was kind of the beginning for me of like, oh, there's more here, in this beautiful earth we live on, if you just like open your heart, open your eyes, and slow down.
That's the main thing. I think it's slowing down. I'm a child of the 80s, so we didn't have social media, we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phone. For us, you had to be outside the whole day. When mom was inside cleaning, cooking, whatever, you don't go inside until the street lights come on.
Yeah.
So for me, the earth, the river, the properties, everywhere I was walking, that was my playground. That's what I did. I would talk to the moon. I would spend time in nature and get my own healing done that way. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But now that I'm an adult and we're surrounded by so much technology, that we forget to do that.
Definitely. Definitely. That's why I think forest bathing and any nature connection practice is so important, just to get us remembering, that we're part of nature, and we feel good. It's like intuitive when you're out there, that it's where you heal, whether or not
Yeah.
it's, logical or
Mhm.
conscious happening.
So there's many people that are probably in the chat who are have an urban playground, so they don't have this nature. I'm almost on 10 acres of property in the middle of nowhere. So I have the ability to just walk the property and not see anybody for days, because no one really comes out here. But how would you encourage someone to use this deck if they are in, say, New York City, in the Bronx?
Yes, I feel like, well, you're a great example of this when you pulled your card inside your house in a power outage and you adapt
Mhm,
the invitation to that. But forest bathing in general is a very adaptable practice. And I have, experiences of being in a city and being in the middle of a Target parking lot and being like, hi,
mhm,
tree. There's always the trees that they plant, and taking a moment to connect. You can even be in your house and have your house plants, in your kitchen window, or have your own little micro garden and connecting with the natural world in that way. And so I feel like even if you're in a city or an urban environment,
mhm.
there's nature, around you. And if you look for it.
So you also do explain and you encourage, there's some safety to come. I mean, that goes with doing forest bathing, being in tune to your surroundings. So not just getting lost in the moment in the forest, but also being aware of the property you're on, if
Mhm.
wild animals that are probably not safe for you to be close to.
Mm,
So you do encourage that as well, to have, make sure you're safe while you are doing this.
definitely. If you're in a city park or you go out on a trail, following the rules, the land rules there that have been instated, and just common sense, goes a really long
Mhm.
way. But yeah, we talk about in our deck to make sure you're being respectful of the land, maybe the property owners, all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing the plants in your bioregion, knowing any, I like to say that they're plants to be aware of, they're rather than
Yeah.
hazardous, because that kind of elevates our stress levels when you say it that way. But plants to be aware of in your
Mm-hmm.
region. Those are all, I feel like, really common sense things, but you can do that very easily and still connect and have a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
moment.
I love that. So the first card that you have in the deck is called Open the Door. So
Yes.
can you explain why this one is very important to start off with?
Yeah. So, as a forest therapy guide, I was trained in a certain sequence to kind of, when I'm guiding people in person, to move them into this more liminal space, this alpha brainwave space where that's where our body starts to heal when we can get into that frequency. And so we made a note and a point of having this golden key card as, oh, the glare is a little much, but as the first way to kind of open the door
Mm-hmm.
to the forest. And it's basically a very simple guided meditation that has you connecting to your senses, each one at a time. And when we can get out of our mind and into our senses, that's kind of the beginning of this beautiful communication that can happen on the land and the beginning of your experience. It kind of gets us into our center and calms our nervous system. So we're open to whatever experience, whatever medicine the forest has for us.
So I did recently go through a lot of your deck as I was sitting outside with my dog, taking a walk with my dog. And wow, the stuff that we don't normally notice unless you are being prompted to notice, even the way you're stepping on the ground, the sound your feet make when you're walking on the ground, what that does, and paying attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like this really helped me open up all of my senses a little bit more and really pay attention to the sounds, the noises, the smells, even if it's just turning your head slightly and picking, see what other smell you can pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this really is a great way for someone who, um, I mean, I think anyone can, but someone who's probably trying to train their intuitive senses a little bit more and really work with them. I think this is one to really help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of where I came from in writing the deck. Be kind of, I wanted the deck to be kind of a bridge for people who are so new to this experience, maybe haven't been out in nature, to be
Hmm.
able to have it be accessible to them as well. So there's very clear instructions in how to connect.
Hmm.
And like you said, it helps you notice things maybe you wouldn't have noticed before. And I get that feedback a lot on my forest
Yeah.
babe sessions where people come and in person, and it was kind of like, how do I translate that into a card? When you don't have
Hmm.
it in your pocket but you have a card in your pocket, like how can I make that experience more meaningful for you, more open for you? And so I tried to write it in a way that would help you notice things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. And it's like having the deck is hopefully like having a guide with you without having to
Hmm.
have a real person there.
Well, you mentioned something about having it in your pocket, and that's not really something I thought about, is say pulling a card for a week and then seeing when I can be able to pull out my card and always have it there available and ready for me. Like pull it, stick it in my purse or my little foraging bag, whatever it is, and stick it in there. And whenever I decide to go out, I'll have already my card ready. I'll have it, um, you know, ready for me to start with, you know, looking for a way to build something that's going to go down a stream. I think here it has about locating a moving body of water nearby and create a boat with found items. Whisper an intention or desire into your boat and send it into the water. Imagine your intention is carried away to fulfillment. That is only the first part of this card. You have the benefits of that, which is setting intentions is a tool for practicing presence and can inspire hope and positivity. And then at the bottom, you have the practice on how to step by step be able to do this. You thought of, okay, you and Roxanne thought of absolutely everything
Mhm.
in this card that anyone could possibly need by just grabbing the one card and taking it with them and going and just going.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
also wanted to highlight, the watercolors. Roxanne did the art and I wrote the deck. And we I just love her watercolors so much, and I imagine someone pulling a card, like you said, maybe for the week, and placing it on their altar space or
Mm-hmm.
their dashboard, like you said. And I think, early on, the way that we envisioned the deck was that the watercolors alone could, prescribe and kind of influence your experience, kind of like how an oracle deck, you pull a card and like the image
Mm-hmm.
to you. So each image and each nature being has archetypes and messages
Mm-hmm.
intuitively that come with them. And so that's like another layer of the deck where you could just pull a card and use the image and, like say you pull the owl card or the snake card and it represents, oh, I meant to shed something right now, shedding our skin. And so that's a fun layer that we kind of hoped
Yeah.
that people would pick up on and use it in whatever way feels good to you. It's a really creative practice and it's fun to get
Mm-hmm.
in your like inner child and play. And a lot of the invitations are very calming and meditative, which is beautiful, but there are some that are more playful, like the shadow, following
Yeah,
a shadow, or there's an inner child one, and
there is.
tapping into that and exploring the space as if you were, 5-year-old you, 7-year-old you. And so there's a lot of like creativity and fun to be had with the deck. And I really enjoy that because that's one of my quickest ways to connect into myself is through play and through
Yeah.
fun.
And here you have dancing with the wind.
Yes.
I think many times we're trying to avoid the wind. It's, oh, it's messing up my hair or too much is going on. And then you try and stay away from it. But here you're encouraging that dancing with the wind, the movement and the dance that can boost positive hormones and create new natural pathways in the brain, as well as strengthen the mind body connection.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
this
quite
is beautiful.
movement in intentions in there,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, you'll get your body moving. You'll also sit in silence and noticing, but there's a whole array of different activities in there for you to enjoy. And I really hope people like it resonates with people and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
part of it sometimes can be coming to your edge, like, oh, I might feel a little bit uncomfortable if I'm outside moving with the wind, because it's not something, a lot of
No.
people do. So I also like to encourage participants when they come on my walk and anyone who uses the deck to kind of come to that edge and explore it and be curious about it, with these invitations, because some of them, you might feel a little hesitant about, but once you're engaging, you never know what, that could bring up in you or how that will feel in the body. And I think it's so important to be embodied, and those particular invitations are good at getting you in the body.
Yeah, I agree. When I was actually going through this deck, this person came to mind. It's Amber. She has a daughter, a younger daughter, and she takes her daughter out into the woods and they have like a path that they walk. And I love watching these videos of her and her daughter doing that. And recently they're doing that a lot more because the weather's finally getting nicer and her daughter's a little bit more steadier walking and stuff like that. So Amber, I honestly thought of you when I was reviewing this deck because I felt like it could give you and your daughter an activity to do while you're out, looking through the walking your path and, as you're foraging or looking for rocks or anything like that. So you and your daughter instantly came to mind when I was looking at this. And I felt like this is something I wish I had with my three boys when they were younger, um, and doing something like this more so with them. Now they're adults and they're out on their own and living their own life. But um, I wish this was something that I had 20 some years ago.
Okay, when your sons come to visit, card out and all of you can do an invitation together. I mean, it is so
Thank
nice
you.
to have for kids, and getting kids out in nature. This is a great family activity. But I want to say also, like, it's not too late, you guys can
Yeah.
still connect together, even if, they're like, "Mom, this is a little weird."
No, they actually love connecting with the outdoors.
Good,
We did do a lot of outdoors activities. They were in Boy Scouts. So
cool.
we were always out in the woods. I was roughing it in a tent or in a cabin with Folgers coffee because I wanted to be there with them and be the
Nice.
mom that went with her kids to do these things. So we did do a lot of that stuff, but I didn't feel like it was as intentional,
Mhm.
as this is. I think this is more intentional where I would have had them listen to their senses more. Um, you know, I I think that's the part that was missing. So we did do a lot of outdoor stuff, but it's more the intention that comes with it and
Yeah,
having them really open up their senses.
yeah, that is so important
Yeah.
for sure.
So thank you. So what happens psychologically or physiologically when someone slows down enough to truly experience the forest? Like what happens to them when when they really slow down?
Yeah, when we're out there slowing down and getting in the body, there's a lot of effects, physiological and mental. But for one, our nervous system calms, our
Hmm.
cortisol levels go down, our blood pressure reduces. Get having a practice like this and really slowing down has so many benefits, like boosting creativity. As far as mental health, it helps reduce the symptoms of like depression, anxiety, and
Hmm.
things like that. That actually, I have a personal experience with that when I started this practice myself when I was new to it. I struggled off and on with some depression. And very quickly, within the first 3 weeks, I noticed just getting out there at least 3 times a week for maybe 20 minutes, just in my backyard, not anything crazy. I noticed my depression was gone. Like for me personally, it helped immensely.
Beautiful.
So there's, they're doing studies all across the world now. There's a lot of science to back up a practice like this, which is really beautiful. And I think a lot of people need that to be like, oh, this is legitimate. And so as long as that can help them connect, I so appreciate all of the science that's coming out. But even
Hmm.
like chronic illness, chronic pain, can be reduced after doing forest bathing for a consecutive amount of time, very consistently. And it's one of those things that, yes, you can pop in here and there and get benefits, but you will get more benefits in your life to have a regular practice. And also you'll be building that relationship to the land. And I also like the spiritual side of
Hmm.
this whole, experience for me is really important. And I feel like I became more open to that, the other realms and the liminal
Hmm.
spaces in that way when I started this practice. And that was kind of something I wasn't expecting, but definitely came in. So it also has spiritual benefits, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it definitely does. So being on my property, I've come across fairy portals, where you walk into the part of the property and you're like, wait a minute, this is not what it looked like last week. So then I step out, take a couple steps to the right, ask permission to come in, and then I walk in again and it looks completely different. The sun's shining, the leaves look happy, the trees look happy. It's amazing when nature decides to show you that.
Mm-hmm. And
When you're paying attention to senses and spirit.
it's a relationship. I wanted to say, like, that might not be open to you the first time you go out there, but it's building
Mhm,
trust with the land, because I do, feel like the land in so many areas have been harmed by humans in a lot of ways, and it's there needs to be built like an open-hearted connection. And like if you go into this practice seeking maybe more of a spiritual communication, I would say, give it time, build relationship, visit often,
mhm,
tend to the spot, your sit spot, which is a practice that's one of the invitations in the deck, where you go again and again to one particular spot, and it's called your sit spot. And you spend at least 15-20 minutes there, just being, or if you want to like nature journal or write, or, just notice and see who, in the landscape wants to present themselves to you. So I would
ah,
definitely encourage that regular sit spot practice and kind of giving time for all the beings in nature to trust you and want to open themselves up to you as well.
Beautiful. I love that. I definitely have a sit spot that I sit at regularly, and it's amazing when you regularly sit there what you start to sense. Like, you sense a little bit more on a the next time you go there, you start to pick up on more things. And it's such a beautiful practice. It really is. And I think the connecting with the earth part is very important. To me, it's so healing in so many ways. Here we have Moonfox. She said, I heard from a tarot reader that nature is said to emit a lot of negative ions, which can be very cleansing and boost your mood.
Yes. Yeah. I think about that a lot and talk about that in my walks.
Hmm.
There's more than just the negative ions, but that is one
Hmm.
beautiful benefit. There's, in evergreen forests, research study that's often cited is the chemical compounds that evergreen trees emit. Specifically, it was done with cypress trees. But when humans breathe that in, it actually boosts they're called killer T cells, and they're the cells in our body that attack cancers and things. And so they stay elevated for like 7 days after, a short time in the forest. So there's a lot of reciprocity going on, because I want to say, I don't want to go into nature just to be like, what can I get from it? And
Yeah.
we do get a lot, but I also want to remember, when we're there, to be respectful and tend to the land and give offerings, or, whatever feels appropriate for you or good for you. Because it is building a reciprocal relationship that feels really, really beautiful and connecting.
So, speaking about spirits, a lot of ancient traditions believe that forests were inhabited or are inhabited. Let me rephrase that: are inhabited by spirits or different types of intelligences. Do you think modern people have just simply forgotten how to perceive that layer of reality?
I think to a certain extent, yes. But we all have the capacity to reconnect, right? It's
Hmm.
not lost. It's maybe just forgotten. And I think so much of our modern society kind of dulls the senses, and it's fast paced, and we
Hmm.
miss so much of this reality when we're go 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 in our modern world. And that's just how our world right now is set up. And so another reason why I think a practice like this is so important. But I do feel like, yeah, we've, it's only been in the last short time in human history that we've been so disconnected from the land, where our bodies have evolved over so long to be in nature. And it's just been very recently that we're disconnected from it. And so yeah, it feels really important to get out there connecting. And there's a lot of messages, for us. I feel like nature is a mirror. If we're aware and open and attuned to some subtle energies, like, we'll pick that up. And if, yeah, that's something I'm sure your viewers are already know a lot of this. So I'm sure they're already on the train. But
But it's a nice reminder, it's a nice reminder that we can go into nature, and nature can help heal us in many ways, not only physically, emotionally, but also spiritually. I think it's that my viewers here are very much, they're very much in tune with the spiritual aspect, and I think that's something that we're all trying to get to. We're all trying to get just closer to the spirit of the land, the spirit of a specific plant or tree, or because they do have spirits. Every single one of them have a spirit.
yes, I totally agree. And it feels even more important nowadays with, the outside world feeling so crazy. And I feel like we'll have a lot of internal guidance, and if we're tapping into the land. And that's one thing that I also have experienced and believe is when we're connecting to the land, it turns us right back into ourselves, into our own higher power, our own authenticity. And the more people connecting to the land and turning inward, I feel like, the world on a grander scale is going to be a better place. And we'll each, bring positivity into our own small realms, and that, has ripple effects. So it feels really important.
So Lori from Craggy Book said, even the sound of trickling water in a ditch can make me stop and listen and fall into a more peaceful state. But I want to turn that around, Craggy. If you are in the city, even having water just drip down on a dish, maybe by your window, I think that sound alone can help you, um, turning that being out in nature, but also bringing that back into the urban society.
For sure. There are multiple studies on that as well,
Hmm.
of the sound of water and what it does to our brain and how it gets us in that healing frequency. For
I
sure.
love
Even getting in the bath, hearing the sound of your body in the bath and getting a little indoor fountain makes a huge difference, bringing nature inside.
beautiful. So, what is your favorite scent when you're out in nature? Like, is there a specific aroma of a tree that really just makes you happy? Because I have one. Every
Yes,
time I smell it, it
I love
it like it does something to my endorphins and it makes me so happy and it's like everything else around me completely fades and
it.
I'm in love with the scent.
Okay, I can't wait to hear yours. Mine, I knew right off the bat, it is pine needles, fallen pine needles that have been warmed in the sun. Just have the happiest smell, and it's like, yeah, I can almost feel the healing happening in my body when I'm out there, and I mean, I have a lot of good smells that I love, but that's my absolute favorite. What's yours?
That's my second one. So we live on the property with my father-in-law. He has his house, we have ours, but he plants pine trees everywhere. So
Yes.
anytime I'm outside and I'm waiting for a delivery to come, usually groceries, because I live so far from everything and my time is just so wild, I actually grab one of those trees and I'll grab some of the pine needles, cut them and break them in half, and then sniff them. So I'm sniffing them and sniffing them as I'm waiting for my delivery. So that gives me a moment outside because I work so much, gives me a moment outside. And then it gives me a moment to, even though I'm not like immersed in a forest, I'm on the property. It makes me feel like I'm on a forest, but that's my second one. That's my second favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite one is a juniper tree or a bush. Um, I've I've came across one in Gettysburg, and Gettysburg's such a heavy place. But I there's this specific tree. There's several of them throughout the whole city, their whole town there, whatever it's called.
Mhm.
Um, but the moment I approach it and then I start to grab some of the pine needles and I smell it, it just completely melts me away from the chaos that I'm physically feeling on that type of heavy property.
Yes,
So
juniper.
juniper is my favorite. Like,
Yeah, juniper is such a good one, and I the properties that I know of juniper are very protective, specifically the
mhm,
berries,
mhm.
and I have a couple on the land I live on, and yeah, often we'll go up and smell her as well.
Ah,
It's a great
I
one.
love that. But that's my favorite. But then definitely secondly, the pine needles. They're just have such an aroma to them that really does ground you in so many ways. And I
Mhm.
think it's something we need nowadays anymore is that grounding. Um, Sometimes if I can't even make it outside to go and, start grabbing my trees there because I'm so busy, my dear friend who's actually in this chat created a grounding oil called Forest Floor.
Ooh,
So I put that
need some of that.
that ritual oil on, I put it on, and then I started smelling it, and I put it on my neck and everything, and I can smell it, and it just really helps put me back and ground me back into the now. So I
Yeah,
think it's
amazing.
so even if you aren't able to, people in the he's we made a grounding. You did. It's right here. I
Oh,
actually had it earlier.
that looks incredible.
Yeah. Him and his the high priestess from their coven create oils and different stuff, and they live out in Arizona. He's in Arizona. But that forest floor oil, um, if you can give me your address at the end, I would be happy to send you some and have an order sent to
It's
you.
so awesome.
So you can actually, try it as well, even when you're indoors and you
I
can't
would
make it outdoors right away.
I would love that. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely look into them too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I once guided, in a rest home, like, for old people, and I
Mm-hmm.
went into assisted living, and it was like bringing the forest into them, you know, and that was one thing I did. I brought some oils, and I brought the Hinoki
Mm.
cypress, essential oil, and, you know, brought water, a fountain running, and, so I just bring that up because, yes, you can bring nature, you know, to you in different ways that you can get creative and kind of get the benefits from that.
I love that. So, do you believe certain landscapes hold memory, almost like emotional or spiritual archives of the people who lived there before us?
I do. Yeah, I think for sure for sure they can absorb, you know, big things that happen and hold the memory. I actually just right up the street, a nature place that I visit a lot, had a big massacre there, you know, when the settlers came in and massacred the Native Americans. And you can feel the heaviness on the land. And my friends and I have gone and had meditations and kind of given back to the land to help try to
Mm-hmm.
heal. But definitely, I think, you know, that goes both ways. Like it can hold heavy memory and you can feel it, and it can hold light, joyful memory. But I do think it's kind of an archive of sorts, you know, and just like our own energetic field, I think, you know, our aura, if you want to call that, can hold information and memory and wisdom. I think the land and the trees and each being has its own intelligence and probably has its own energetic field that also holds onto things. And yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. I feel like I've experienced it. When you come into contact with somebody else's energetic field, like you can just
Mm-hmm.
get a download of information, or, you know, a knowing is what I call it for myself. But I often wonder if that's, oh, because I'm within the energetic field and there's some sort of mechanism that can be just transmitted to our brain or something. I don't know how it works, but I just know I've experienced it.
I know. So we had the same thing here on our property. There's an old wagon trail that actually went through this property.
Okay.
So there is energies that are picked up that um, are a little bit more sadder, more because there was a fight not too far from here, like a battle. So when you pick up on stuff like that and then still trying to bring yourself into nature, I think it's sometimes hard to be able to separate those two.
Mhm.
You know, I think it's hard, but I think it's um, like you said, giving an offering to the spirits and letting them know that you're not there to harm them, you're not there to do anything to them, that you're there, you want to cohabitate that area with them.
For sure. Yeah, and I think acknowledgement goes a long way, like
Hmm.
you said, and giving offerings. That's I kind of there's 3 things I always try to do when I go to a new place in nature, and it's introducing myself and
Hmm.
acknowledging the beings or the energies I'm picking up on, and as well as the, you know, native lineages that have caretaken that land before me, and then giving offerings, I think is a really beautiful way to, you know, state your intention and that you're here to commune and be with, and all, you know, even these heavier energies that some land might hold, it's
Hmm.
all welcome. It's part of life. Like
Like
we
Gettysburg. Yeah.
yeah, we carry heavier energies in our bodies as well, and it's, you know, we shouldn't turn away from that, and I think it's important to kind of, yeah, be curious about.
So Moonfox was asking, what kind of offerings do you give?
Yeah, so I tend to try to just keep a little offering pouch with me in my backpack whenever I'm out in nature. And right now, that consists of it's always, you know, natural things that are okay for
Hmm.
the environment or good for the environment. And I have like cornmeal and some dried rose petals that my from a bush my grandmother planted years ago, and I give that as an offering often. And sometimes if I'm out and about, I don't have something physical, I just give gratitude. You know, words are an offering. Singing a song is a beautiful offering. I've plucked a hair out of my head and
Yeah, I
yeah,
did that too. I
yeah.
was taking something from Gettysburg and I didn't have an offering there with me. I left it in either in the vehicle and that was too far or in the Airbnb that my husband and I had rented. And I was taking my hair. My husband's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm giving an offering. This is fairy property right here where we're at, this tree. it's definitely Faye. I'm thanking them and I want to give a piece of my hair. And he was, so he's learning.
Yeah, yeah,
But that was also something that I've done, even like, last year, the property blessed me with a whole bunch of mugwort. So when I first approached it, I didn't have anything with me because I wasn't expecting to see it. And I gave my first offering was my hair. So
amazing. And I bet your
yeah,
dreams were incredible after that. I think mugwort's good for dreaming, right?
it is. It is very much good for dreaming. And it did. I mean, just to be blessed and be seen by the property. I think that goes with having respect for the property, and the spirits around here are noticing that you are respectful of the property. And that's when they start to give you, they gave me honeysuckle and mugwort and agrimony and mullein and just a bunch of other beautiful herbs that were found here because of, I felt like it all happened within like a 2-week time frame. It was so wild that
Wow.
um,
Yeah,
it was just beautiful.
that's
It's
so
beautiful
special.
when the land sees you and the
Mm.
spirit sees you.
That's a perfect example of, yeah, living
Mhm.
in right relation and co-communing with them for sure.
Yeah, so she said she was going to give a bit of her hair, but got scared because what I think, please change my mind. I don't want a bit of me that any negative energies can use and come back to me. Yeah, I I don't see it that way. I only feel the negative energies that can come back to me are the people who get a hold of it. But if you're giving a strand, that's going to be very hard for a person to get a hold of a strand. What do you think, Lisa?
Um, I I feel like intention goes a long way. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's not something I've ever been super worried about, but,
Mm-mm.
I think, yeah, the intention of giving, my guides and, my spirit team, my well ancestors will kind of assuage any negativity around it, I think,
Yeah,
because the intention is pure.
yeah, nicely said. I think your guides and ancestors will protect you because of the beautiful offering that that you gave to nature and that you gave to spirit. So I think in turn they will go back and make sure that you are protected and nothing negatively is going to come back at you. But that's a really great question. And then here, Psychopomp said that the birds will use your hair for their nest.
Mhm.
And if you get it as an offering, it's safe, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example.
Hmm. Beautiful. So you take children and adults out into nature, into forest bathing. What is the huge difference between the children and the adults when you take them? What's the main thing that I think each one of them take out of it?
Yeah, I would say the difference is often just initially like a hesitation from the adults, especially if
Hmm.
it's new. Whereas children, I think, are so good at being present and getting into play. And, nature is our playground, we're meant
Hmm.
to be climbing and running and experiencing. And so I think there's just a little bit more hesitancy because we've kind of been trained out of that as adults, right?
Hmm.
And what was the second part of the question?
And then how do children actually like what is their relationship with the forest when you take them in there? What's the huge difference between adults and
Yeah.
children?
Yeah, so I own a forest school and run a forest school for kids, so I'm out there with kids all the time, and it's such a joy. And I notice it's the eagerness to connect. They'll often intuitively like go up to a tree and say hi, or notice the cloud. They're very present, and I think that would be another difference between many adults, and adults can learn a lot from kids. I learn a lot every day being in the forest with children, and I think they're wise in so many ways that we kind of forget as adults. And so there's a lot to be learned, which is another reason why like that inner tapping into the inner child is also a really
Hmm.
important practice and can be, woven into forest bathing really beautifully.
So have you ever guided a skeptic into the forest who came out completely changed and believing that the forest was talking to them?
When you ask the question, there's one person that pops in my mind years ago, one of my very first forest bathing sessions that were public. So like strangers are coming. And he was like a big kind of burly man, very stoic, very quiet. And he didn't share a lot because in my sessions I'll offer up an invitation and everyone goes out on their own or paired up, and then we come back in circle and can share. And so in these sharing moments, he didn't really share a ton, passed over the talking piece, which was totally fine. But it made it more surprising at the end, I guess, when he shared in the final circle. And he got very emotional, and he said, I came into this like not really knowing why. I saw it on Instagram, and I felt like I should be there, but I felt a little bit nervous, or like, what the heck is this? What am I getting myself into? And by the end, he said he was just, very emotional and very grateful that I had, opened up this space, because it was a way of being in nature that he hadn't experienced since he was a child. And it was something that
Oh,
he expressed, like not realizing he still had access to that, within himself, and how simple it was, and I think, I think I got the sense he came in a bit as a skeptic and left, that was a really special walk. I still remember, because there was like 12 of us and everybody's getting each other's information at the end. And it was just like such a,
oh, beautiful.
yeah, no one knew each other beforehand, but oftentimes that happens in these are 3-hour sessions, and we're really kind of deepening in the further in we go to the practice. And sometimes it can be vulnerable, and I create a safe space where nothing leaves that space. But yeah, that was a very special moment where I still follow him on Instagram, I think.
Oh, beautiful. So
Yes.
you're in Southern California then. Is that where you do your forest bathing at?
I'm actually not. I grew up in Southern
Oh,
California.
okay.
I live in Utah. I've been here for 20 something years. So yeah, I'm
Wow.
by the forests, just an hour south of Salt Lake.
Okay. So my husband and I, we traveled to the Four Corners and also did go to Utah. We did like a 2 week
Oh, nice.
visiting national parks and monuments and
Yeah, we've got a
spending
lot.
as much time in nature as
Yeah,
possible. That's beautiful.
yeah.
If I would
So,
have known this 5 years ago, I would have been looking for you 5 years ago.
well,
Because
our
Utah
paths,
is beautiful. Yeah, Utah is
if you
beautiful.
ever come out, reach out, because I would love
Oh,
to see one of my
definitely.
favorite spots. And yeah, it's a beautiful spot.
Yeah, because we did all the national parks out there. And I think it's definitely the national parks out in the Four Corners is something very special.
Yeah.
It's just for me when I witnessed it and I was there for 2 weeks, it was extremely magical, special moment that I will never ever forget.
Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
about the desert, and there's a lot of like sacred spaces, sacred lands
Mhm.
out there. I haven't been to the Four Corners, but I've been to, the southwest and southeast of Utah, and there's a lot of really beautiful, beautiful land out there.
It is beautiful. Wow. Oh, I can't wait to get back out to Utah.
Yeah,
I'll
so
definitely reach out to you.
my name Wasatch Forest Therapy. So Wasatch is the mountain range I live by. So that's where that
Oh,
name
okay.
comes from, and yeah,
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
an indigenous name. Yeah.
Beautiful. So after all these years of going out into nature, how has your relationship with the land actually evolved? Because starting off from California and then going into Utah, those are different types of lands, different types of surroundings.
Yeah. Yeah, my practice has evolved quite a bit. And I would say when I found out about, this more mindfulness in nature, I was already living in Utah. And I kind of went into it because first of all, I felt a very strong, like, oh, you have to be trained in this. But I went into it, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into as far
Mhm.
as the spiritual aspect. And it was just more of like, helping, the physical benefits and the mental benefits. And I have always felt a certain connection to nature, right? But I hadn't really gone too deep. But that over the years, as I've cultivated my practice and shifted and changed, I've I kind of have seen, and felt that there's so much more to the natural world than I ever realized, right? And there's more energies and there's more communication to be had, and that was so exciting to me because I'm open to all sorts of things, and I always have been, and I just didn't have the discipline or the take the time to really be slow and be with it, and that's what you need if you want to connect to these other realms. You need to slow down,
Hmm.
listen, and open your senses. So it wasn't until I started my forest bathing practice that kind of
Yeah.
evolved, and I yeah, when I first wrote the first iteration of the deck, it was very early in my
Hmm.
writing career, and and then I got the opportunity to rewrite it once we got it published with Red Wheel, and that's when I had a little bit more of my spiritual side coming in. That felt really good to incorporate in parts in the deck. So the deck has evolved with me. It's been a beautiful labor of love for like 8 years. There's been a few different iterations.
Wow.
We self-published, first, and and so yeah, it's been along with me on my journey, my nature connection journey the whole time.
Oh, beautiful. And so you also have a psychology background. So how did that help you when you were taking people and children into the forest who were having, sometimes the forest can make you emotionally release. So how did that help you to understand that and help guide them through that?
Yeah, having kind of a foundation of my degree in psychology, definitely I pull from it, to be honest, in like all aspects of life, right?
Hmm.
Forest therapy, as I'm guiding circles, it definitely informs how I respond to people, how I open a space, knowing, you know, also childhood development, how to work with kids in different stages of development. I pull from that knowledge as well, and yeah, it's kind of a beautiful. I'm so grateful I learned about psychology and got that degree. And at the time, I didn't go on to do anything with it per se. Like I didn't become a therapist. Um, but it definitely kind of built a foundation for what I, later have done with being a therapy guide. And we love to remind people that, we're not therapists. The forest is the therapist, and we're just guiding you into the experience and holding the container in a safe space for you to work directly with the land. Because honestly, I couldn't provide as perfect of medicine as trees do, as the water does, as Earth herself does, and so I am really proud to be the guide and let nature give her medicine in the way that works individually for each of us, because no human could really do that, right?
No, not at all. And I don't think there's medication that can adequate, like there is no medication in my opinion. I mean, I'm in pharmacy, so that can mimic that type of response needed for that type of healing.
Mm,
I don't think that medication will ever be able to reach that.
for sure, yeah, it will try.
Yeah, it
The
will try,
first
but then you're going to have a
step,
million other side effects just to
right?
try and achieve the one thing. Whereas nature, you don't have a negative side effect from it.
Mhm. Yeah, and part of I don't know if you've heard of the blue zones across the world where
Yes,
people live the longest,
yes.
and part of that equation is they're very connected to the land and living simply, with the land, eating whole foods from the land,
Mhm.
that type of thing, and so it's the best medicine, really, and
Like Japan, Greece.
I think Southern California, there is one there,
Yeah.
but yeah, all my favorite places.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, so when you are going into guided retreats into sacred lands, what makes that place sacred in your experience, and how do you approach those types of places with adults and children?
Yeah, yeah, I've recently started doing retreats. Well, I did my first retreat last year and guiding people to Ireland, which for me is just there's a heart connection to that land and it feels very sacred. And I think approaching spaces like that, you just have a lot of reverence, I think. And what I mentioned earlier in our chat
Yeah.
about, introducing, acknowledging, giving
Hmm.
offerings, I think is really important. That's what I would always fall back on if I'm going to a sacred space, or, any nature place,
Hmm.
of course. But there are places that I've been to that feel like maybe the veil is a little thinner and it's easier to connect,
Yeah.
and and I'm very drawn to those places, but then also, my sit spot up the street is also a sacred space for me,
Yeah.
and we create our own sacred spaces. So, I think just coming in with reverence is always the key.
So I had that happen to me a couple years ago. I went to Scotland and England,
Mhm.
but more so Scotland. I was on the Isle of Iona, which is it's known to have a thin veil. And when I was there in nature, um, it literally felt like I was floating the whole time. Like
Wow.
mentally, I felt good. I wasn't exhausted, but I literally felt like I was floating. And it was a life altering experience
For sure.
being in Scotland for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had similar experiences over there, and I would love to, explore more places around the world where there's these, quote unquote thin spaces, because I think there
Mhm.
is something to that. And I also believe, like, with cultivating our own practice, we can reach those, unseen realms easier too. We don't have to go to just these like thin spaces, but they are sacred and special. And I feel like if anyone
Mhm.
has the chance to go, definitely go visit the ancient forests in the UK and Ireland. That it's just something, like,
Yeah.
profound, the energy there.
Yeah.
You can feel the
Just
love. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Just looking at all the greenery when you're there, the landscape, the hills, the streams, it's it's such an experience that I I literally I felt like I left here as Selena and came back as Essence of the Moon when I was out there.
Mm.
Like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that's what changed me is that whole trip, um, changed me in more ways than one, and it was being out in nature continuously for 2 weeks on
mm,
hikes, on guided hikes, um, I mean, heck, I came back with 13 pounds of rocks that I found on a beach
yes,
in the Isle of Iona because I'm like, these are coming with me. They're
yeah,
each one of these were
yeah,
special. So I had them on my carry-on.
we're
And yes, I
definitely
got
soul sisters.
I know. And I literally, I mean, I got pulled over in Heathrow and they're like, well, you have to check your bag. There's something. I'm like, it's just rocks. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, no, it's just rocks. So he opens up my carry-on and he sees all these rocks. But I also
Yes,
had like other like spiritual stuff that I picked up in different areas and um they just laughed because it's who I am. I just did that in Texas. My best friend had a bunch of quartz and geodes and stuff in her flower bed and I'm like, what are these doing out here? So I'm picking them up and I came back with 6 more pounds of rocks.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got rock gardens all around me, and
me
definitely
too.
had a few run-ins with the TSA of just like,
Oh, I love it. So you probably
what
did
is
that in Ireland too, didn't you?
For sure, yeah, every time, and I have a lot of beautiful nature treasures that came from that land and use in my own spiritual practice, and it's really
Yeah.
special. So
Oh,
maybe I recommend going to Ireland as well someday, and yeah,
well,
you'll have
whenever you have your next spiritual retreat,
yes, I would love to
I would
definitely.
love to see when that date is, and if I'm available, I would definitely love to go and go with you and experience Ireland. I haven't experienced that part of the world yet. I did Scotland and England, but I think I should have taken a little train ride or a plane ride over to Ireland and experienced that as well.
Yeah, yeah, well, maybe down the line, that would be amazing.
No, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. I would definitely love that. So, if humanity could remember one forgotten truth about our relationship with the natural world, what do you think it could be or it would be?
Our one forgotten truth. I feel like I feel like it would be just, it's so simple, right? But just that we are nature. I think we've become so disconnected as a species. And if we can remember and feel, that we're this small, important part of a greater whole, and we
Mhm.
have gifts to share, that just like the land has gifts for us, like it goes both ways. And if we're tapped into ourself, those gifts become more and more present and aware. But I think maybe the first step is remembering, like, oh, I am nature, like this body is the earth, and I think that that helps you immediately feel more connected when you shift your perspective that way.
Yeah. I love the rock hounds.
I love your community. I'm like reading the chat here and there.
Yeah.
So
I
fun.
have a phenomenal community. I really do. I'm so lucky to have such a supportive group with me. They really do make these lives so much more fun, and they make life just that much better. I have such a phenomenal group of chatters and people who'll text me and remind me to slow down, and because I have an issue with that. And
I'm going
this
to be
deck
on
has.
that list now. I'll text you.
Yes, definitely. So, but this deck has been really good at helping me to notice. Yes, you guys are big chatters. To just to notice when I do need to slow down a little bit more, and the West Coast and Galway, the cliffs some more. Yeah,
Yep. I second that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that does, this deck did help me do that, and I'm really thankful for that. And I think that everybody in the chat here would definitely benefit from this type of deck. Picking one card a week and getting outside if you can, or if you can't, do it inside and find a way to recreate it inside, I think would be another wonderful way to use this. Are there any other ways that you would recommend people use this? Use your deck?
Yeah, I feel like they're, like I mentioned before, just getting creative. I think
Hmm.
being with a group, it's a great family activity, or going out on a hike with friends and pulling the deck out. And I think you'll be surprised at how connecting it is, not only with the land, of course, but with each other. I think using it as a group is really fun and really connecting. And then like the oracle card, using just the images for your experience
Hmm.
is another fun way to use it. And yeah, I think even like spreading out the deck, or a few, like 10 cards, and seeing what image calls to you. And you don't know necessarily what the prompt on the other side
Oh.
will be, and that's kind of fun. But I think the intuitive, like shuffling like you do a tarot deck, and whatever pops out, I
Hmm.
love doing that myself, because it feels like, oh, this was meant for me in this moment, and you can kind of glean messages and intuitions with whatever that is. Should we pull a card for everyone?
Yeah, let's definitely pull a card for everyone, and see what message anybody who's watching this, or who's in the live right now, what you are guided to be doing for the next week. Like, since it's Monday. Yeah,
That sounds
since
great.
it's Monday, and see what energies are coming out for the people in the chat or anybody that watches this. So that's exciting. Oh, and literally as I did that, my ear starts ringing.
I love
Okay, guys, that's spirit saying, yes, y'all need to try and do this, because my ear just started ringing as I was getting ready to shuffle. Oh, this one's beautiful.
it. Which one is it?
I got the helping hand with
Oh,
the dog.
I love that one.
Isn't this one beautiful?
Yeah,
It reminds me of, of my little four-legged dog here who's watching me through the window.
sweet.
So I'm going to go ahead and read what the back says.
Okay.
So the invitation is: wander and notice if there is a living being that might need help in some way. Offer assistance in whatever way feels right for you. The benefit is the act of helping others produces positive endorphins, improves mood, and boosts immunity. And the practice is the first one is find a living being in nature that looks like it may need some assistance. Perhaps you notice a tree with a broken branch, an insect submerged in water, or a plant that needs tending. Assist a living being in whatever way feels appropriate. Communicate your intentions with love and respect. And does this act of kindness bring anything up for you? Be with what it means to you to help another living creature.
Oh, I think that's such a perfect message
Yeah.
for, especially right now,
Yeah. Helping somebody.
helping somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you
I'll do it
did.
with
Yep.
everybody. Let's all do it this week.
Yeah. So do you have a card that you want to share with us that you think maybe another message, possibly if someone can't help somebody?
Yeah, maybe rather than trying to find one that popped in my head, because that might take a while, I'll just do what you did and
Okay.
see which one pops out. Okay, this one is Worlds Within Worlds.
Beautiful.
It's got the poppy, one of my favorite flowers. The invitation is there are worlds within worlds all around us. When we create the space to notice these worlds, we may be surprised at what we discover. Focus on something in nature and observe it as you move in closer. Then imagine its inner workings. Where do your senses and imagination lead you? So that's just the first part, but I won't read the whole thing. It might take a while.
That's beautiful. Definitely, guys, pick up the stack, An Invitation to Forest Bathing. You might be surprised at what it helps you remember for inner child healing, or what it's going to help you heal mentally, emotionally, physically, but also spiritually. I think this deck, as it has a beautiful little message, let nature heal you, in the inside of the box. I think this is such a meaningful deck that we need in today's world. You know, it's not your normal oracle deck, tarot deck, which I love. I love both of those. But this one has a little bit more meaning to it, as well as guiding tools to help heal you. You know, I think it's beautiful. It's such a perfect deck. And thank you, Lisa and Roxanne, for creating such a phenomenal deck. Even if it took 8 years, I think the timing now is perfect.
Yeah, everything in its right time. I didn't know why it took so long, but I think it's a really important time to get this message out, and
Yeah.
have this practice or practices like this to reach people. And I just feel so grateful and such an honor to be here with you and your community. And I love the interactiveness, and thank you for being so welcoming. And I just feel so excited about my deck. And so it means the world to me that you had such beautiful experiences with it and are sharing it with your community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, we have a couple minutes if you want to add something in there. But I do have one final question for you.
Yeah.
If someone walks into a forest after watching this interview, what is the one thing you would hope they carry with them?
I feel like you wrote that deck so I could very easily be like, my dad for that question. You wrote that question. but I won't say that because something else is coming through. I think maybe the one thing that I would really hope people to carry with them in the forest and really anywhere is curiosity. Just it's hard to pick one, like being open and being curious, because I think that will lead you into yourself for one, and into experiences that you might not have otherwise. And that breeds connection, right? Curiosity breeds connection. So I would hope that anyone entering a nature space, including the forests, could go in with a lot of curiosity.
I love that very much. Someone here is asking for a giveaway. So Since I normally do giveaways, I am trying to pull up my StreamYard link here so that I can do a giveaway.
Nice.
And let's see if I can find it in here in my emails. And I will mail it out to you once it's available to be mailed out. Okay, here we go. So if see this is him. He's the culprit, always asking for a friend. Does Essence of the Moon have any giveaways this evening? Okay, so this will be our next question. If y'all want to do hashtag nature, or no, hashtag forest. Put in hashtag forest. Hold on one second. Don't put it in yet. Make sure it's one word. So hashtag forest if you want to be included in the giveaway of this deck. I will have Amazon deliver it to you guys. Okay, Roman? So hashtag forest for the giveaway. And then the Fabled Witch asked, have you noticed a difference the more you build a relationship with nature versus the beginning of it?
For sure. I think there's just like any relationship, you know, with a new friend, a new person, like there's just more depth, there's more communication, there's more vulnerability. For sure, for sure. Yeah, I would recommend starting. You know, there's beautiful aspects to starting, and then the longer you continue with it regularly, you'll find more and more benefits. So
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'll wait a couple more minutes before we do the giveaway tool. The only thing is you have to be in the United States, because for me to ship overseas or to get something done overseas is very, very hard. You don't need to put it in 3 times, Roman, just once. Just once works. Hi, Hinda. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Hinda. That's so funny. Let's see, Bridget's laughing at you. Yes, I know this spinning wheel is usually rigged. And not my spinning wheel, but somebody else who was in the chat, his spinning wheel is always rigged. So since we're waiting a couple more minutes before we can do the giveaway tool, I know that you also have children, and you have your own children that you take into the forest. How have they seen what you do? Like, how do they, I'm trying to, what is their take on what mom does?
I started this practice and moving through forest bathing when they were probably about 3 and 6. So they were fairly young when I started. And before that, of course, was like getting them out hiking and in nature. But after that, it was the more, you know, noticing, slowing down. And they're now, 12 and 11 and 14. And I can see like they have their own unique relationship with the land, right? And my younger son is more rambunctious, and he wants to find the snakes, and my older son is more contemplative. But they both, like, we go out often and we just find a spot, you know, a sit spot, and we each do our own thing and be in nature. And it's really beautiful to see their own connections to the land that they've cultivated just by continually being out there. And I think they kind of like roll their eyes at me sometimes, especially now that one's a teenager. But I know he actually loves it, you know.
Oh, beautiful. And I know boys are different, because I mean I have 3 boys, so they you know, they definitely love nature, but at the same time, when my oldest one, he completely doesn't want to get dirty, but everybody else, they're like, hey, let's jump in this, let's grab this, let's start feeling the ground, let's start making piles of whatever it is that they're coming across. So they're very different as well. But I'm very thankful that I did have that opportunity with them when they were in Boy Scouts and did all that stuff.
Yeah,
As much as it was hard for me because I wasn't like that, I didn't like that stuff. I still did it for them, you know. I still put myself in
yeah,
those types of situations so that I could be with my kids.
yeah, yeah, and cultivate that connection.
Hmm.
That's
I
awesome.
love that. Okay, so we have 5 entries that are wanting the deck. So I'm going to just go ahead and do the spinning wheel, and we will see who comes up. Oh, Bridget, the fabled witch! Congratulations. Sorry, Roman, it is rigged. Bridget, congratulations. I already have your address. So I will go ahead and, oh yeah, because you and I never get picked on the spinning wheel. So she finally got picked as well. I'm excited, Bridget, for you to have this, especially where she cheated.
Yeah, I'm so
She,
excited. She'll have to reach out, and I would love to hear her experience with the deck.
yeah, definitely. How exciting. Sorry, Roman. But yeah, this has been extremely exciting. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for creating such a meaningful tool to get us outside to, um, soak in nature's healing energy. I think that's, maybe something that we definitely need, the grounding energy as well that you get from going out in nature, or even in a little patch of grass, taking your shoes and your socks off and
Mhm.
just standing there for a couple minutes and intentionally asking the ground to help heal you and ground you, and imagine your feet and is going straight down into the core of the earth, and making sure that it's like the roots, it's such a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, I think so too, and thanks for having me, and I hope our conversations spark something in everyone who's listening to just go out, even right now after the call, go put your feet on the earth and see what that feels
Hmm.
like. Yeah.
Definitely. And to all of you watching, thank you all for sitting here in this space with us, for walking this threshold, and for continuing to seek, feel, and to remember. I think that's something that's very important. I hope that your path continues to be guided, illuminated, and protected by spirit, guys. Thank you all for being here once again. I appreciate you all. And Bridget, once again, congratulations to you. And if you can hold off, Lisa, for a couple minutes at the end, and then we'll chat for a little bit before we go on our
That's
way here.
great.
But
Yeah.
thank you all once again, everybody, for being here, and I will see you all on the next live.